Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show. I'm your host, Joey Harris, and we are broadcasting from makeshift studios in the shadow of South Central Virginia. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cup of Joe Pod. You can email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. You can support the show at paypal.me/cupofjoepod. Folks, today we look at Clash 22 from WCW. Clash of the Champions 22 was shown on TBS on January the 13th, 1993. From the Mecca in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And folks, out of all the wrestling shows that I have watched over the last 30 plus years, I probably watched this one the most. Now, we didn't have cable where I lived. I think I've mentioned that on a previous show. And my friend Jason Stainback said that the Clash was coming up, and if I got him a videotape, he would record it for me. I said, that's a deal. That sounds like a good deal to me. And so he did, and I have watched this show dozens of times. It just is one of those nostalgia shows for me. I could probably quote it word for word. But we start out, this is the last Clash for Jim Ross, who would be leaving WCW shortly. We start out with our Clash intro. Tony Schiavone welcomes us to the Clash. He is with Bill Watts. Watts runs down some of the people who have wrestled in Milwaukee and name drops Ric Flair. They talk about Van Hammer being injured as well as the suspension of Eric Watts. Larry Zbyszko talks to Eric Watts, who mumbles his way through saying he will be vindicated. Schiavone and Watts then throw it to Jim Ross and Jesse Ventura, and they talk about what we've just heard. Cactus Jack versus Johnny B. Bad. They show the two not getting along as partners at the Lethal Lottery. Jesse talks about Cactus Jack having a following from the Cactus Jack signs in the audience. They go back and forth. Cactus Jack beating Bad down in a corner. Bad moves on a corner charge. Bad with an armbar. Cactus Jack comes back with forearms to try and break the hold. Bad runs Jack into a turnbuckle. Bad with an inside cradle for a 2 count. Bad goes for a sunset flip, but Cactus Jack ducks. Bad falls to the mat. Cactus Jack drops an elbow on him and covers Bad to get the pin. Tony Schiavone tells us that the Great Muta has defeated Masa Chono to become the new NWA champion. A Too Cold Scorpio video with him and the kids and him asking why they aren't in school and the kids saying they're going to the game room. They then dance to school over shots of Scorpio in action. I think about this video way too much in life. When he says, no man, we're going to the game room, and Too Cold Scorpio says, what do you mean you're going to the arcade? You kids need to be in school. I think about that in this video way, way, way too much. Too Cold Scorpio versus Scotty Flamingo. They lock up. Scorpio with a wrist lock and a hip toss. Flamingo pushes off and Scorpio comes back with a shoulder block. Scorpio kicks Flamingo to the outside. Scorpio hits a chop to Flamingo on the floor from the apron. Scorpio throws Flamingo back in the ring. Flamingo catches Scorpio with a drop kick and Scorpio falls from the apron to the floor. Flamingo crossbodies Scorpio on the floor. Flamingo stomping Scorpio in the ring. Scorpio with an inside cradle for a 2 count. Flamingo with a suplex for another 2 count. Flamingo with a reverse chin lock. Scorpio comes out of the move and hits some forearms and a drop kick. He hits the scoop slam and a crossbody for a 2 count. Flamingo moves out of the way of a Scorpio splash and gets a 2 count. Scorpio with a super kick and a leg drop. He then hits the 450 splash to get the pin. A feature on what led up to the Thunder Cage main event with Cactus Jack being turned on and attacked by Harley Race, Paul Orndorff, and Vader, with Cactus Jack coming back to attack them. Chris Benoit versus Brad Armstrong. They lock up and Armstrong with a side headlock. Benoit pushes off. Armstrong misses a drop kick. Back and forth with holds and counters. Armstrong with a hip lock and a drop kick. Armstrong with an armbar. More counters, and this is an even-paced match so far. Armstrong with a drop kick and back to the armbar. Armstrong tries to pin Benoit to the mat, and Benoit bridges up. Then Armstrong bridges out and goes back to the armbar. Benoit back to his feet. Armstrong into a hammerlock, and Benoit reverses. Armstrong goes down and forces Benoit to the outside, back and forth. Benoit tries to get Armstrong out the same way, but Brad doesn't fall for it and drop kicks Benoit. Armstrong goes back to the armbar. Benoit out and they exchange moves. Benoit with a front face lock and just drops Armstrong on the top rope. Armstrong on the apron and Benoit jumps up to the second rope and comes off with a clothesline to Armstrong to the floor in an impressive move. Benoit gets a standing ovation. Back in, Benoit gets Armstrong down. He gets a 2 count. Back and forth again. Benoit with a backbreaker. Then a scoop slam and Benoit goes for the flying headbutt, but Armstrong moves. Armstrong with a swinging neck breaker. Benoit comes back with a full Nelson into a German suplex to get the pin. A feature on the Rock and Roll Express being back together in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. This would lead to a short talent exchange between Smoky Mountain and WCW. They announced that Ricky and Robert will be on Super Brawl 3. We then get an arm wrestling contest, Vinny Vegas versus Tony Atlas. Vegas is left-handed and wants to go left-handed. Atlas says he doesn't care. They are even at first, then both with a slight advantage. Vegas finally wins and calls out the injured Van Hammer. The Wrecking Crew, Rage and Fury versus the Z-Man and Johnny Gunn. The Wrecking Crew are Al Green and Mark Laurinaitis. Zinc and Rage start. They lock up. Zinc with the side headlock. Rage tries to waistlock Zinc off, but Zinc doesn't let go. Back and forth. Zinc with a crossbody for a 1 count. Zinc with a drop kick. The Wrecking Crew go outside to regroup. Gunn with a double clothesline to the Wrecking Crew. Rage back in with Zinc. Gunn tagged in. He runs Rage into Fury and gets an arm drag on Rage. Rage comes back and gets Gunn in the corner and Fury tagged in. Fury with a clothesline to Gunn. Back and forth. Zinc tagged in, and this is an awkward match. Fury with a side slam. More back and forth. Gunn tagged in. He cleans house. He runs the Wrecking Crew's heads together. Double team forearm off the top rope. They call the Wrecking Ball and gets the win for the Wrecking Crew. Larry Zbyszko interviews Brian Pillman and Steve Austin. Not yet the Hollywood Blondes, but they are ready for Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas. Tony Schiavone interviews Sting. He gets a great ovation when he comes out. They have cut the White Castle of Fear movie, but Sting says he has no fear. He brings out Ron Simmons and Dustin Rhodes and says they are ready for the Thunder Cage tonight. Larry Zbyszko talks to Vader's team. Harley Race says Cactus Jack is going to pay for attacking them. He then fires the Barbarian for his association with Cactus Jack. Barbarian attacks Race and then gets attacked by the rest of the team. Jim and Jesse talk about what just happened. Jesse says it was stupid to get rid of a 4-3 advantage. A feature on Super Brawl 3. Larry Zbyszko talks to Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas. They want Pillman and Austin and are ready for them. Unified World Tag Team Championship match. Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas versus Brian Pillman and Steve Austin. Steamboat and Austin starred, and these two always have great matches. Back and forth, and they are going at it fast and furious. All 4 men in, and the faces with the advantage, so the heels bail out to the floor to regroup. Austin gets a forearm and a kick to Steamboat, and Pillman tagged in. He chops Steamboat in the corner. Steamboat comes back and hits a drop kick and an armbar. Douglas tagged in and hits an elbow from the second rope before picking up the armbar on Pillman. Steamboat and Douglas quick tagging to keep Pillman down. Pillman fakes an injury to surprise Douglas and goes to shoulder block Douglas from the apron, but Douglas catches Pillman and slams him. Austin tagged in and Douglas catches him with a drop toe hold and gets the armbar on Austin. They exchange holds on the mat. Austin with the hammerlock as Jesse says Douglas is a big Rush Limbaugh fan, so take a shot if you're drinking at home. Austin coming back. Steamboat tagged in. He slams Austin in. Douglas back in and the champions are back to quick tagging. Douglas with a cover after a back elbow, but Pillman breaks up the tag. The tag champs double team Austin and Steamboat throws Douglas on Austin, but Steamboat is the legal man. All 4 men in and Steamboat throws Pillman on Austin. Steamboat with a wrist lock on Austin. Austin with a suplex and Pillman tagged in. JR brings up his football career, so take another shot. Pillman with the 2 count after a slam. Pillman goes Douglas in and then throws Steamboat out of the ring while the referee is getting Douglas out. Austin attacks Steamboat, which brings Douglas in. Pillman attacks Steamboat's throat on the apron. Pillman suplexes Steamboat in and gets a 2 count. Austin tagged in. Challengers quick tagging and keeping Steamboat in their corner. Steamboat trying to get out. Pillman runs Steamboat face first into the canvas and then chops him again. Steamboat gets Pillman down, but Austin had the referee distracted. Austin tagged in and hits a gut-wrench suplex on Steamboat. Steamboat fighting back. Austin cuts off a tag attempt with a belly-to-back suplex. Austin with a reverse backbreaker over the shoulder. Pillman tagged in, but Steamboat ducks as Pillman comes off the top rope, and Pillman takes out Austin. Steamboat with chops to both heels. Steamboat suplexes Pillman down. Steamboat finally tags Douglas in, and Pillman begging off. Douglas cleaning house, all four men in again. Douglas hits a belly-to-belly suplex on Pillman as referee Mike Atkins was getting Steamboat out. Austin comes off the top rope and hits Douglas. Austin puts Pillman on top, but Atkins is trying to get the illegal men out. Pillman only gets a 2 count. Austin grabs one of the tag belts and hits Douglas with it, but Atkins sees it and disqualifies Austin and Pillman. The heels attack after the match, and Douglas is busted open. Wrestlers come out and the heels take off with the belts. Jesse is in the ring. He recaps Vader winning the WCW World title from Ron Simmons. Jesse then interviews Vader and Harley Race. They get interrupted by Simmons. Simmons says the next time they meet, he will beat Vader again. Race tries to attack Simmons. Simmons grabs him, and then Vader and Simmons go at it, and Simmons hits the sidewalk slam on Vader. Simmons attacks Race and gets attacked by Vader from behind. Vader hits another 2 shoulder breakers on Simmons. Sting and Dustin Rhodes come out, and Vader and Race leave. Thunder Cage. Dustin Rhodes and Sting versus Vader, Paul Orndorff, and Barry Windham with Harley Race. A come dressed as you are street fight. They start to fight as soon as the faces get in the ring, and Sting and Rhodes with the early advantage. Windham and Rhodes start. Back and forth. Rhodes with corner-mounted punches. Windham with an Irish whip. Rhodes tags Sting. Sting drives Windham into the mat. He then press slams Windham. Vader tagged in. He pushes off and tries to taunt Sting. Back and forth. Sting with some right hands to try to get Vader down. Windham and Orndorff also go down when they come in. Sting with a corner whip, and Vader goes up and over like he's Ric Flair. He lands on the apron and gives Sting a double clap on the ears. Vader goes up top and hits Sting with a clothesline. Vader goes for a splash, but Sting moves. Sting clotheslines Vader out. Orndorff in, and he kicks Sting down. He hits a clothesline and an elbow. Windham tagged in and hits a double axe handle from the top rope. A float over suplex gets a 2 count. Heels cut Rhodes off from helping Sting. Vader tagged in and hit Sting with a splash and a forearm. Windham tagged in. He goes for the superplex, but Sting fighting Windham off. Rhodes tagged in. He cleans house on the heels and hits Windham with a lariat. He then gets a backdrop on Windham. Rhodes with corner-mounted punches to Windham. Cactus Jack comes down with bolt cutters and gets the door open. Cactus comes in and hits the heels with his boot. All 6 in and fighting. Orndorff and Rhodes left in the ring after everyone else was thrown out. Cactus Jack comes off and hits Orndorff with his boot as Orndorff was trying to pile drive Rhodes, and Jack covers Orndorff to get the pin. Jim and Jesse interview Cactus Jack. He says you can beat him, but you can never hurt Cactus Jack. He tells Paul Orndorff to bring it on. Jim and Jesse then plug Super Brawl 3 before signing off from Milwaukee. Final thoughts. This show was all nostalgia for me. Good action from start to finish. Happy trails to Jim Ross, who will be out and headed to the WWF in a few weeks. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at @TheJoeyHairs. If you like the show, please leave a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or your preferred podcast app. I would really appreciate it. Thank you for joining me this week. This is Joey saying so long from the heart of Virginia.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.